You're listening to the Create a Life That Is Beautiful podcast with your host, Leticia Ringe, and this is episode number 21.
Too often, I think people's initial choices are kind of cut off at the knees because they're different to what we make. And I think having a culture of curiosity is really, really important.
Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to episode 21 on the Create a Life That Is Beautiful podcast. I'm your host, Leticia Ringe, and this podcast is designed to inspire, empower, and support you on the journey of uncovering your truth and purpose in the world. So thank you, whoever you are, for sharing this space with me today. Wherever you are, whether you're on your way to work, leaving work, taking a break, going for a run, a walk, doing some cooking, cleaning, hitting the gym, whatever you're doing, I want you to know that I really appreciate you being here. Get ready, because today we're going to have some masculine energy in the house. So today you'll be hearing from the inspiring Raine from Hello Sunday Morning. Yes, that's right. We finally have a man on here. Hello Sunday Morning is a charity based in Australia that began as a blog after Chris was given a brief that involved him taking a 12-month experiment to quit drinking. At the time, Chris was only 22 years old. He worked in the evenings as a nightclub promoter and by day in advertising. Chris blogged about his experience giving up alcohol for those 12 months and realized very quickly that this was something he wanted to continue. Hello Sunday Morning today is a for-purpose organization servicing governments, individuals, and corporates in rethinking our relationship to alcohol and drugs. Hello Sunday Morning has a signature program called Daybreak, which allows anyone to access trained clinical psychologists with special experience dealing with removing alcohol and drugs from your life. And anyone can get access to that service if you've decided you would like to limit or remove alcohol from your life. Or just give it a try, you know. Chris explains in the episode that many of the people who go through their program do end up giving up alcohol for good or for extended periods. However, he himself is still someone who needs to use the program as he goes through periods of abstaining from alcohol and then reintegrating it into his life. So rather than removing alcohol from society, the aim of Hello Sunday Morning is to provide people with more awareness as to the reasons why they are drinking so that they can make conscious choices around their consumption. They say on their website that Hello Sunday Morning is a movement towards a better drinking culture. Our vision is a world where drinking is an individual choice, not an expectation. Hoo-hoo-hoo. So good, isn't it? Just allow me to indulge in a quick rant. This is my issue with alcohol because I don't want my children to grow up in a world where they have to feel like a social outcast because of the choices they make around their alcohol use. The social pressure around alcohol is a real thing. And if you think about any other aspect of your life, you know when you want to try and fit in with the culture around you, that you will behave in ways that aren't true to the person that you really want to be. This is like one of the biggest problems for all of us in, trying to show up as our authentic selves when we feel like fitting in is belonging and we crave belonging, but really we only get true belonging if we show up as ourselves in spite of not feeling like you're fitting in because, we're all different. So anyway, rant over. A fascinating and different perspective on drug and alcohol use generally, which is why I really wanted to have Chris on the show. So join us in this episode as we talk about Chris's experience removing alcohol for 12 months and since then his relationship, learnings and challenges with alcohol, the journey of Hello Sunday Morning, and support offered for anyone wanting to reduce or remove their use of alcohol, running a for-purpose charity or organization, the role of advertising when it comes to drugs, what is a drug, the effects of alcohol neurologically, emotionally, and socially, the benefits and disadvantages from Chris's point of view of alcohol, Chris's advice for finding purpose and a meaningful career, the role of mentors on his own journey, how to support the people in our life who are thinking about doing something different to the status quo, including giving up alcohol, and the importance of curiosity in our relationships. Plus, of course, many other beautiful moments and topics throughout our conversation. I have to say my favorite part of this convo is the bit at the very end about how we can support the people in our life who are wanting to give up alcohol or do something different. Chris's perspective is one I personally have related to so much, and hearing him put it in the way he does really crystallized my own desire for curiosity in my relationships. Anyway, listen for yourself and let Chris and I know what you think. Now, quickly, before we dive into this episode, I have a couple of announcements to make. Actually, I have 3 announcements to make. So number 1, my ebook, 21 Actions to Create a Life That is Beautiful, is now available to everyone who signs up to receive my weekly newsletter. This is a weekly email that goes out to you filled with my latest content, offerings, and inspiration. And the ebook has been designed by me to act as a program for you to complete, to give you the foundations that I used to help me turn my life around and take back the reins to my life. And I offer this completely free because it's something that I want everyone to have access to, regardless of whether you're 1, willing to spend money on your own personal development and growth, and 2, whether it's something that you can really afford. Number 2, this weekend, I will be finally sharing the details for the online course that I'm launching. You've heard me mention this. It's all about feminine essence, and I'll be sharing all the details in this Sunday's newsletter. So if that's something that interests you and you feel your inner being going, yes, pick me, then make sure you check out that there. This will also, of course, help you in discovering truth and purpose in your life. And my final announcement is that, well, it's more of a question. Are you interested in making the move from corporate to creative? Because if you are, Kelly Track and I are running a 2-hour online workshop on the 24th of June to help you take the leap. You will hear how both Kelly and I did it, how we overcame our mindset issues that arose before and after taking the leap, which, my friends, they are inevitable. What we actually do as entrepreneurs, what we wish we knew before we started, how to know when to take the leap, how to run a business with flow and ease rather than hustle and grind. And you can also expect me to, of course, touch on running a business using feminine essence. So if that's something that's interesting to you, you can head over either to my website at www.leticiaringe.com/workshops, or you can go to my Instagram account at Create a Life That Is Beautiful to grab your ticket. Exciting times ahead, my friends. Now let's dive into the episode with Chris Raine. Hi, Chris. Welcome to the Create a Life That Is Beautiful podcast.
Thank you very much for having me.
No problems at all. I'm really, really excited to have you here with us today. Can we get started first with just you letting us know a little bit about who you are and what you're currently creating in the world today?
Sure. So my name is Chris Raine. I was raised on the Sunshine Coast in Australia, and for the last almost decade, I've been building an organization called the Hello Sunday Morning. And Hello Sunday Morning's mission is to make sure that anyone in the world that has an issue with alcohol and wants to make a change in their life around it has access to the tools to do so. So we work with governments and organizations and individuals. And so, yeah, we're based in Sydney, but work around the world, and are really focused on helping with this specific but global problem.
Yeah, that's so fascinating. And you know what? I can't believe that it's now been a decade, because I know that you started Hello Sunday Morning, or well, the journey all began back in 2009, which just really doesn't seem like that. That is almost 10 years ago. That's crazy.
No, no, it's interesting, and it's certainly like a marriage. Like it has different ebbs and flows of experience, and the organization changes quite dramatically, and my role within it's changed a lot. And some bits are easy, some bits are hard, but
Yeah.
it's a definitely a purpose.
Absolutely. And so, well, could you let us know what was your relationship like? Because I know that you also did an experiment, which is so interesting because I gave up alcohol for 2017, which you probably know. And I did it also as an experiment just to see what my life would be like if I gave it up for 1 year. And then, I've made the decision since then to continue not drinking. And so
Yeah.
I know that you did something similar. So could you tell us a little bit about that, and also what your relationship was like with alcohol before you stopped?
Yeah. So, well, actually, it all came about. I was working as a nightclub promoter in on the Sunshine Coast, and then also working in advertising in Brisbane. And so I had these two jobs, so advertising during the day, nightclubbing at night. And I actually got a brief on my desk at the advertising agency to come up with an idea around the government was trying to push towards getting young people to do less binge drinking. And the campaigns that we were coming up with weren't that great. They didn't really talk to me or the reasons why I was drinking. And the reasons why I was drinking were quite clearly expressed every night when I was in the nightclub and trying to get people to binge drink, including myself. And I had this experience where I started asking questions around why do I drink and how do I use it, how I might use it better. So the setup was an experiment to not drink for a year and blog about what I learned and what I found difficult and why I was using alcohol, why I wasn't. And that, the name of the blog was Hello Sunday Morning. And the I wouldn't say that, my level of drinking was really holding me back in a massive way, but it
Mm-hmm.
was certainly something that was, was a curiosity, and I certainly I felt like it fed into my anxiety and social
Mm.
anxiety, and the experiment really brought that out, and it was a really great thing to do. And that's sort of how other people heard about it, and it grew from there.
That's so, so cool. And so, how did you find that first year of actually, not drinking?
Yeah, it was an amazing experiment. I think I in the beginning thought it would be really easy. I thought, I could just not do it, and I could take some tools and all about to it that my girlfriend at the time dumped me, and I had the challenge of dealing with some of the emotions that I would normally probably drown out with drinking, and that was really a powerful experience in the beginning because I was like, oh, okay, it's a trigger response to just drink. Um, that's part of our culture and life. And
Mm.
then throughout the year, it was, yeah, I mean, it wasn't, it, there were times that were really great, experiences that I had, like going out and not drinking, and times when I would go out and not drinking was terrible. And, it's just life. And I would, encourage everyone, if whether you're going to use this drug or not, for a lot of people, they'll drink for the rest of your life. To take an extended break from it
Mm.
is, something that I would recommend, especially if you start drinking earlier. It's a great way to get an understanding of one's own psychology.
Absolutely. You learn so much about yourself, because I think it's really underestimated, how much we actually are emotionally relying on alcohol. It's like our blanket, especially in these social situations. I know you mentioned the social anxiety. And I experienced the same thing, that giving up alcohol for the first few months, it's very in your face, it's quite awkward, but also I hadn't appreciated just how much alcohol was giving me that, buffer or blanket when I was in social situations.
Definitely. And we're a drug using society, so these drugs will always be with us, and it's, I guess, beholden upon us to always question why it is we're using them, whether they're adding value and at what dose. And for some people it's none at all, and for others it's a little, and for others it's whatever is right for them.
Yeah, and it can be, there's so many different things that we can, overconsume and use them as buffers. It can be simply shopping, and eating, and, so many other things that, aren't necessarily a drug or a poison, but it's all, our awareness as to why we're using them and when we're trying to fill the void, I guess. So what worked for you during that first year? Like, did you have any strategies or anything that you used to replace alcohol?
Yeah, I mean, in many ways, I replaced alcohol with caffeine in terms of staying up and out. I was 22 and all my friends were going out all the time, so I drank a lot of Red Bull. So I can say that I'm a purist in any stretch of the imagination. But I think probably it was having an honest reflection on, how I was drinking really showed me how I did life in a lot of different ways, and whether that was relationships or with families or friends, and probably the best, there's lots of ways of getting around facing those challenges, but actually I think that just doing it, having an experience, if you've never done it before, it can be enormously valuable.
Yeah. And so what have you noticed with people? Have you found, has there been any patterns with people either, just going cold turkey, or people doing it, gradually? Does one seem to work over the other, or it depends on the person?
It really depends on the individual and what they need and where they're at. So our main program is called Daybreak, which you can get from our website or download it in the App Store. And so we have health coaches that talk to people as they're going through these working this out. And for 80% of people that sign up, they come in with the intention either of cutting back or quitting, and most people end up deciding to quit for an extended period of time. Could be a year, 2 years, forever. And it just takes a little while to get there. Personally, I still have alcohol as part of my diet, and I still, constantly questioning it. And sometimes I'm really happy with that, and other times I'm not. And I sort of sit in the grey area with most people that use it. But what is most important isn't about the drug, it's behind that, and processing the anxieties and the stresses and the things that often lead us to using it in excess. And that's where, for us, we see our role as making sure that whatever those reasons are, that you can talk to someone that's dealt with thousands of people with the same reasons, and you can get tips and strategies from trained professionals to change that. So that's our whole reason for existence.
Yeah. And did you, after your year of not drinking, did you then start reintroducing alcohol immediately?
Yeah, I mean, well, not the first night. The first night I was up in Cairns in North Queensland, and all my high school mates were there, and we were going out, and it was going to be the first night of drinking after the 12 months. And I actually met someone in Cairns. Sorry, it was Ellie Beach, apologies. In Ellie Beach, who had done exactly the same thing, took a year off drinking, and just finished the year. And so we were talking about it, and I ended up just hanging out with her all night, just talking about the year, and didn't drink, and so sort of that was the first experience. And then on driving back on the way home, I stopped in at Bundaberg, which is this tiny town in Queensland, and went into the bar and had my first mojito after a year, which she didn't really know how to make, and it was terrible. But since then, that was sort of 8 years ago, and I've taken time, like periods of time, like 3 months or 6 months off annually, or a month here or there, and it really kind of depends on where I'm at and what's going on in my life to do that. And I think lately I've really tried to take to talking with our coaches and making sure that, like, if I've got an issue or I'm drinking too much, then I can deal with that by talking to a professional and looking at what's underneath it.
That's fantastic. So you're benefiting from your own program.
Yeah, definitely.
I think that's a great testament to it, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, it's either that or I send them gifts. Like you can send gifts, like little animated things or something. I think I'm the only person that does that to our coaches. So.
And
good use of service.
Yeah. And so what do you think were some of your most unexpected benefits for the year that you gave up alcohol, or for any of the other, periods that you've had without alcohol in your life?
I think definitely a mental clarity was, a huge thing, certainly health-wise and achieving goals and that health goals particularly, that was useful. And but yeah, just having a clearness of mind. I also think that, and now I think when I look back on it, having had experiences that perhaps if I didn't have the year off, I would have never had Zoba, like family occasions or friends drinks, birthdays, or all that stuff. And just to have all of those experiences sober once, and if I'm honest, I think that for me, some of those experiences actually enhanced with alcohol. But I'm glad that I've had them sober once, and I'm like, I appreciate them in a different way. So that was definitely the value that I got out of it.
Yeah, and because did you say you're only 22 years old at the time?
Right.
Yeah, that's just, it's so heavily ingrained in everything that we do socially, especially at that age.
It totally is, but with young'uns coming up now, and people are in their early 20s and younger, the culture is changing.
Yeah.
Like there's a real acceptance, I think, from younger people for other young people to have different choices of consciousness, and whether that's drinking or drugs or whatever. But there's not this one culture of you must drink to fit in, and people are more accepting of that, and that's really exciting to see, that flexibility and kind of celebration of difference that young people now have.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, there's a lot more that there is a lot more consciousness. Also, millennials want to know, with any business, what is the purpose behind what you're doing, apart from obviously profit.
Yeah. And that's a good thing.
Yeah, it is a good thing. It's a great thing. It's so exciting. I really can't wait to see what comes out of, this generation and the younger generation coming through. So actually that's a great topic to explore. Have you noticed the role of purpose because you had, it wasn't just to, stop drinking alcohol. You had, and it was to do an experiment, you had the brief. So you sort of were given a purpose outside of the actual just giving up alcohol. Do you think that helped with your mission?
Yeah, I mean, 8 months into the first year, I knew that this is what I wanted to do. It was the cross section of, it was what my skills were in advertising applied to a very thorny, complicated problem that affects a lot of families and individuals that isn't black and white. It's, as diverse as there are individuals, and I knew that this is what I wanted to do. And I think that fire's still there. I still feel really passionate about changing the way that the world uses drugs, and how we do that has changed a lot. I think, in the beginning it was just an online program that anyone could sign up to, and it was more of a movement and a social kind of mission. And today, most of our work is much more around systems change, working with governments and health bodies to make sure that people have access to treatment. It's a different population of people, but the mission is still the same. It's just got being of greatest value to our society. So, but I'm fascinated by the content, and always have been, and always, I see, probably will be, around how we make choices in the drugs that we use, how those choices are healthy, how they're not healthy, and how structures and tools can support people to make better ones.
Yeah, that's so important. And what have you learned about the reasons people drink?
It's a complicated question. I think, there's so many layers to that question. Is on a neurological level, how it affects the brain, is that it essentially disinhibits the neurons that are firing. It makes us less anxious. It also affects our memory. And so there's all these different layers that are happening on that neurological level. And then from a social level, there's subcultures and cultures that bring people together in certain environments, make them feel safe about talking or dealing with other people. And then there's, from a consumer level, there's brands that assess a certain status in society. It's so varied and complex that, from my perspective, what really matters most is just a person and how they conceptualize it, and from our work and technology is, when they come to the point where, like, I'm unhappy with the way that I'm drinking, that as soon as possible they can get the help that they need to take them to where they are, whether that's like quitting or cutting back or whatever it means. And that's what matters most. So we want to do that at scale. So it's having an individual focus at scale, which is our whole kind of purpose. And if you listen to this and you're questioning your relationship with alcohol now, then I really recommend talking to one of our health coaches and having a chat about it, because they talk with thousands of people every day through these challenges, and there are some patterns that can be seen around why we drink, but also how the experiments we might take on to make important changes.
Yeah, it's there are just so many different facets to this, as you pointed out, and one that I wanted to talk about was, the marketing of it, because, of course there's the brain, we sort of get stuck in this cycle where the solution to our problem is to drink alcohol. And that's also like what starts the cycle, because we get hungover and, and also because of the social benefits that we have to drinking. And so then the solution to our problem, which was what started the problem, is the alcohol, which is what, and any drug. So we get into this really difficult, spiral. But at the same time, then there's the social pressures, but this marketing, and I think this is for just generally, we have the marketing around us is just constantly telling us, we need more, we're not enough, you've got to keep, not to just be happy with what you've got, of course, because we're, a consumerist society. So these messages, but really, I hadn't appreciated just how much is in your face around alcohol. Like everywhere you go, there are advertisements for just going and getting a drink. It's so easy to get. Some places it's cheaper to have alcohol than it is for water,
Mm.
It's crazy. So I think, yeah, like we don't realize, the subliminal programming that's happening as well even when we're not conscious to all of these messages that are around us. But when you start to build that awareness and notice them, it really is quite frightening, actually.
Yeah, I mean, it has a real. Yeah, you're totally right, and I think that probably a better society would be one in which alcohol is available but not advertised in the way that it is. So people still have choice, but I think, take in the US, for example, where you see the pharmaceutical advertising, it really influences consumer decisions and consumer behavior. And I think drugs are and should be part of life, in my opinion, and should be part of the choices that we make. But they shouldn't be sold in the same way that bread or milk are, or have the same rights to mass consumerism. I think that's not helping anyone except those specific companies. So, yeah, that's my opinion on the subject.
Yeah, that's really interesting to compare it to the way pharmaceuticals are marketed in America, because there is a much bigger reliance, I guess, on pharmaceuticals from what I understand, although I haven't really done a lot of research into it. So, but it's a really tricky issue because, in Australia, we've got all around smoking our plain packaging sort of advertising, and I'm not sure what the stats are with that, but it seems to, if I just look at my own, friendship circles, more millennials are less millennials are smoking than ever before. Less people, the younger, millennials, but I still feel like for people my age, it hasn't really been a deterrent, the plain packaging. So it's a tough question.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the perfect model for all drugs. Like, I think it shouldn't be attractive. It shouldn't be sold in attractive ways, but I still believe in consumers having choice and being able to use these drugs and experiment with them. And certainly in tobacco, the culture has changed to be really around supporting people to not smoke. And I think that's having that diversity is great.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously as well, you're running this organization. So what are some of the key lessons that you've learned through running Hello Sunday Morning?
Oh, it's a really every day is different, and the challenges just change all the time. As the organization has grown and the partnerships have gotten bigger and the work is different and our services have changed, it's always complicated and interesting. I think probably so I run it really with a business partner, a guy called Jamie, and him and I really co-lead the organization, and he was able to look after it while I went away and did an MBA for a year and came back, and we sort of, the culture of the organization had sort of changed in perhaps a negative way. And so we decided that we were going to invest in people and culture and really learn how to do that well. And so we lent on our corporate partners to steal the best ideas from their heads of HR and people. And that was the best thing that we did, because we could try and experiment with all these different things within our organization that, as a small organization, you might not know about or have access to. So we did that, and for the last 4 years, heavily in building a great team culture, and that's the most important thing for us, to maintain that drive and power of the team. And that's really my focus. But it's still, still small. I have a team of 22 people. It's still small enough to be tough and being involved in everything, and it's really that's also really fun.
Yeah. And how do you feel about referring to the organization as, a for-purpose business?
It doesn't matter whether you're a charity or or for-profit entity or whatever, it still requires the same thing, from our perspective anyway.
Yep.
So we really run the organisation like a business, and we have partnerships with governments and health bodies and corporates and corporate foundations, and we just go where the opportunity's best to have the greatest impact.
So it must be such an exciting, an exciting role that you have there.
It is, and I think a lot of so like coming up and building a charity with a lot of my friends, they have sort of gone on and done this for a while, and then gone into other jobs or other companies and had different experiences, and I still feel the same sense of love and passion. I see myself going at least for the next few years, building it up.
Fabulous. And so would you have any advice for anyone who might be listening to this conversation right now and they're thinking, I want to find something that really ignites my passion as well. I want to have, a deeper meaning or purpose behind what I do in terms of my work. Is there any advice that you'd have for someone in, finding that?
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone says just go for it, right? It's like the thing, like, just do it. I think some thoughts that I've had along this point is I think there's a couple of things. One is I think I'm really passionate about drugs and how we use them because my parents are both GPs, and there's a lot of people in our family that are health professionals that use drugs in different ways. And then I ended up in nightclubs where there's a lot of alcohol and drugs and whatnot. And I think that it's always an area that I've been fascinated with in society. And so my first piece of advice would be think back on through your life around what has interested you and what has led you to where you are, and what's that story say about why you do what you do, why you're interested in what you are. And there's often a thread there that can be sustaining for where you want to go. And the other thing is, I think you don't always have to start up your own thing. If you find, an organization or a company or an entity or even a person that's doing something really interesting, there's nothing stopping you from joining them and getting involved in what they're doing, even as a volunteer and to begin with. But all our interns seem to end up with jobs in our team. So it's a really good way to get your foot in the door to start there. And I think being useful in that way can be a really powerful way to find meaning without really kind of having to define exactly what your mission statement is on a paper.
Yep.
Taking some form of action.
Yeah, that's true. The action is so important, just to give you the momentum, because you really can't figure out. I mean, if you looked back now at what you've created with Hello Sunday Morning, even when you first received the brief, there's no way that you could have known that it would turn into what it is today.
No, not at all. It's and the amount of twists and turns of life and near complete annihilations through it all. Just as I've gotten older, I've realized how less predictable the future is, and you just have to roll with it. The other thing I'd say is I've had amazing mentors too, and I think people are always afraid to find people that they really like to spend time with them or ask them questions around how they got to where they are. And I've always just tried to find people that are living the life that I'd like to live in 20, 30 years time, and convince them to be my mentor. And that's the ones that I set up kind of 5-6 years ago. The relationships that I have with them today are very personal, and they know me really well, and now I know them really well, and it's a really good investment because there's an accountability to living a good life with them that I always find talking to them one-on-one is helpful. And to catch up with them each, every quarter. It's not an onerous thing, but I think starting that early or whenever you can, is really, really powerful.
Yeah, I think it's really important as well that you think of, where you want to be in like 20, 30 years time, even 10 years, 5 years, but you're thinking ahead at where do I want to go? And these are the people that you're trying to surround yourself with in terms of mentors, because it's really, I think it's important to have, obviously have people who are able to show you what you can do right now, but also in giving you some sort of understanding about, what might be on the cards for the future, about, what could lead you there. It's really important to have the now and the future focus in anything that you're doing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And mentors, I mean, it's such a great time, because even if you can't get to the people that you want to in person, even being able to, connect with them over the internet or social media is just so powerful, because I think environment is, well, they say environment's so much stronger than willpower, and I can completely vouch for that myself. We are a reflection of the people that we have around us. So if we're really curating our own, inspiration, and even just in our Instagram feeds, it's going to motivate us,
Yeah, totally. And there's a strong reason to try and cultivate that, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, Chris, if anyone's listening to this and they really want to either give up alcohol or just try it for some time, or maybe reduce their intake and, drugs and alcohol, what would be your, one piece of advice for them?
Yeah, I mean, well, from a self-serving perspective, definitely sign up to our newsletter, and we send out a weekly newsletter with ideas or thoughts around this. But if you're really, really interested in this, download Daybreak and talk to one of our health coaches. It's free, and you can access a clinical psychologist. And it's really something that you would have to pay $200 an hour for. You can get and talk to someone, and not only that, but they're really trained and experienced in people with this specific challenge. So having just even one conversation with them is useful, because you can understand, why you're using alcohol, and how you might be able to use it better, and or not at all, whatever you're interested in. And so I think beyond us, I think 80% of people in Australia drink, and it's the same in most Western countries. It's a drug that affects, and many people use, and I don't see that changing dramatically in our lifetimes. But in that same breath, we need to constantly be questioning why it is we're using it, and whether it's adding value to our life, how it's adding value to life, how we might be able to use it more effectively, like we would any drug. And I think having that conversation consistently and over a lifetime is the most important thing.
Yeah. And, the community that Hello Sunday Morning provides is really, really helpful for, even just providing another perspective, but also just seeing the people who have managed to create a better relationship with alcohol. That's really motivating. So, yeah, I think that's also just signing up for your newsletter, but also following you on Instagram. I found that personally for myself, it was really helpful during my year without alcohol.
Yeah, I mean, you go onto the feed on Daybreak and you just see people that are going through life challenges like we all do.
Yep.
And there's such a powerful resonance to go, oh, cool, like I'm going through that too. And what our data suggests actually, which is quite fascinating, is that the more people support other people, the better their mental health outcomes are and how they drink. So the more you actually invest in commenting and liking and supporting people that are going through this challenge, the more it reinforces your own sense of behavior change, which is a real real power in having a community that's focused on this.
Oh, that is so interesting. And actually, because my next question for you was going to be, how can we support people who want to give up alcohol, as someone who maybe doesn't want to, but wants to support the people around them who are making that decision.
I mean, and it's not just with alcohol, but like all the time people try different things, or just like giving up meat for a bit, or trying a new diet or exercise, or and in particular with alcohol, like trying different ways of engaging with it or not at all. And I think I do catch myself all the time, just putting shit on people for trying different stuff, and it's just a natural human behavior. But it's when people are trying different things, the initial reaction, I think, we should try and be one of support and curiosity, and just be there supportive for a person. And then if they're comfortable in their decision and you've got a good friendship, then afterwards maybe can joke around with their choices. But too often I think people's initial choices are kind of cut off at the knees because they're different to what we make. And I think having a culture of curiosity is really, really important. And also trying it out for oneself too, like joining them and taking a break, or cutting back, or whatever it is. It's a great way to understand the choices that they're making.
Oh, that's so true. And I really, really love that you mentioned curiosity, because I think that's something that is easily overlooked. And the relationship between support and curiosity, because when people even just simply ask you questions about, your experience, how it's going, that does wonders in making a person feel supported, rather than, maybe completely dismissing what someone's doing and just, not asking anything about it when it's, especially when it's a really big change in your life, like giving up alcohol or reducing how much you're drinking. So thank you so much for mentioning that.
It's so true.
Yeah. And so, Chris, life outside of Hello Sunday Morning, what are you loving at the moment?
I'm writing a lot at the moment. So writing in the mornings, doing a bit of travel and reading. I'm in a book club on Saturday night. Just sort of have a few hobbies. But kind of writing or working is taking up most of my life. Yeah.
But you enjoy it, right?
I love it. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mostly. Some days I hate it.
Yeah, like anything.
That's okay. Exactly.
Oh, amazing. Well, thank you so much for coming on and speaking with us today, all about, alcohol and drugs and Hello Sunday Morning and all about purpose. It's been so helpful. And honestly, I really, really love what you've created at Hello Sunday Morning. And I think it's really important to note just how supported you feel in that community. And that's not, an easy thing that you've created there. It is about the culture that you've created with the team that you've got around you and all the coaches that you've got working for you. And also just, the people who are on social media, like they just do such a great job at making you feel supported. And I think that's just such a testament to obviously you and also Jamie. And, thank you so much for creating what you have.
Thank you so much. Yeah, really appreciate you having me on.
So there it is, my friends. I hope you enjoyed that fabulous conversation with the beautiful Chris Raine of Hello Sunday Morning. Yes, beautiful, because men are also beautiful. Thank you, Chris, so much for coming on the podcast. I absolutely agree that we should be making sure we are supporting the people around us by practicing curiosity when it comes to their decisions and what's going on in their lives. I mean, it seems quite basic, but I think this is something that is often and more often than you think overlooked. This has got to be one of the best ways to show your support and that you care about a person, that you value and respect them. And think about it. That's what we want from our relationships. That's how we want people around us to treat us. So just to reflect on your own journey. If you make a big life change and your closest friend doesn't say anything about it, doesn't ask any questions, doesn't acknowledge it, how would that make you feel? It would probably make you feel like they don't value your friendship. And while, of course, I think we've got to take care of our own feelings, I do think curiosity is a big problem in our society. We have become afraid to use it and to show it. It can make us feel vulnerable, but it is so, so, so important for meaningful connection. So if there's one thing that you can take away from this episode, I highly recommend it's to start asking more questions to the people in your life that you enjoy being around, and also, practice it on the people that you're meeting. Really get to learn a person's story. There's so much opportunity to learn things through connection. I think it's also been really nice to hear from a male's perspective today on their advice for finding purpose and meaning in terms of your work. Chris has got some really great suggestions there, so I hope you've noted them down. And generally on the topic of alcohol and drug use, I think this episode's been really interesting to see, Chris isn't either, he's not, for or against alcohol. He's just for being aware of how much we're consuming alcohol and making sure it's a conscious decision when we do choose to use it. And this is the thing, I also agree. If you want to drink alcohol, that's fine. That's absolutely fine. That's your choice. It's like, if you want to eat meat, as Chris mentioned in the podcast, or if you want to, eat sugar, or you want to eat, you want to have whatever you want to have. You want to have whatever you want to have. That is absolutely fine. But you want to be consuming it in a way that is conscious and not as a way to be escaping from your feelings. Because then, my friends, they never get the opportunity to be dealt with, and they just for me, from a theta healing perspective, from my study there and the subconscious and the body, and, they just get lodged, it gets stuck. All of this resentment of not actually being able to express and experience your emotions gets stuck in your body. And that's how sickness and disease happens. That's how we harbor resentment for all of our life. And we really just need to forgive ourselves and the people around us. It destroys our bodies, our minds, our relationships. So we need to just recheck ourselves, check in. What is your relationship with alcohol like? Why are you drinking? Really ask yourself that before you have a glass of anything. What is the reason for me having this? Do I only believe that I can have fun when I'm drinking? And if that's the case, then I highly recommend that you start to think about ways that you can have fun that don't require anything outside yourself. Fun comes from within. Alrighty, my friends, if you want to connect with Chris and Hello Sunday Morning, you can find their work over at www.hellosundaymorning.org. And you can also find them on Instagram at hello_Sunday_morning. And you can find the show notes for this episode at www.leticiaringe.com/Hello Sunday Morning. So let me know how you found this episode. What are your thoughts on alcohol and drug use? I'd love to know. Let's start this conversation. And come and hang out with me on Instagram at Create a Life That Is Beautiful, or Facebook at Leticia Ringe. Now, what's happening for me next? Well, as I record this, I'm still not yet in Cinque Terre, but as you hear this, I will be in Cinque Terre in Italy, hopefully enjoying some beautiful views and some walks and some Italian food, and just generally enjoying having a week to myself, enjoying the space to then come back fully recharged and inspired and ready to talk to you all about my newest offering, which is my online course. Now, the question of the day for me is, which I'd love to know if you've got any input, should I learn Italian or French when I come back? I still can't decide, and I know Italian is meant to be way easier than French, but I'm feeling the pull to learn French lately. Anyway, my friends, I'm going to be back next week and ready to share the details for this online course. I'm so excited about this. I've created it to really help those of us who, like I was, realized how disconnected we were from our feminine right brain energy. More details will be shared in this Sunday's newsletter, which you can sign up for and find out more about at www.leticiaringe.com/subscribe. Have a fabulous week, my friends. Thank you for being here. I really cherish you being here and sharing this with me. This podcast would not be possible if it wasn't for your support. And thank you so much for sharing this episode and for leaving your reviews on iTunes. And I love hearing from you all. It's so fantastic. I really love connecting with you all here in this way. So I'll see you next week for another episode to unlock your truth and purpose. Bye.